Thank you so much, sir, for coming to my podcast. It's such an honor having you here. So, I have a bunch of questions I would like to ask you. So, one of the first question I have is you've seen so many reels that you have reviewed from, young professionals who just graduated college and want to get their first opportunity. What's like the one mistake or what's something you see that's holding them back from their first chance?
That's a good question. I have an answer that's, well, I don't know if it's the most encouraging answer, but I think the thing I see most frequently that's holding people back is everyone's so focused on making the demo reel to get them hired when you should be focused on just animating. Obviously, everybody wants a job, and the goal is to animate to get a job. But I've seen people so focused on the job search and on applying for jobs, and they're applying and applying and applying and applying. And they're reaching out all these places, and they're not getting any work. But they're not spending any time animating and improving and actually becoming a better animator. They're spending so much time on the hunt versus on the actual craft, and it makes it difficult to give. It's hard for anybody to see your reel and tell you that, which is why I'm saying it now when like I'm not telling anyone specifically because I can say, if you've been hunting for work for a while and you haven't been animating very much, there's something wrong with that mix because it's the quality of your work that gets you called and gets you hired. Sometimes it's timing, sometimes it's, whether the studio has an opening and things like that and finding, where there is work and money funding a project. Of course, that's a factor, but when people are hiring and actively looking for animators and you're not getting the call back, the problem may not be with your reel. It may just be as a whole, you have more work to do. But to give also an animation focused part of that response, I would say usually the thing that's wrong with a reel is the fundamentals. It's the, I don't want to say the easy stuff, but like it's the basics because you can have an amazing idea for a super fun shot, but if like your foundational body mechanics and things like that aren't working really, really well, then a studio can't know with confidence that you are worth the risk of hiring you. So usually it's not a matter of like, wow, you're just not reaching the certain heights you must reach. It's usually like there's something wrong at like that you should have learned by now, which is why I say keep animating because like you'll nail that stuff with time, but that's usually where the problem is. It's something simple that's like, oh shoot, yeah, there's just like these weird jerky motions, or I don't know, I could give all the kinds of examples, but that's usually what I see the most, unless you're more advanced.
Understood. That makes sense. My next question is this big debate which is currently going on is will animators end up keyframing directly in Unreal instead of Maya? And you are someone who knows both the platforms so well. Would you say that Epic Games is slowly successfully taking over Maya's grip on the animation pipeline?
They're definitely loosening their grip for sure. I don't think Maya will ever fully go away, and I don't think Unreal will ever fully take over. But at the same time, it depends on the studio. Some studios are actively hiring animators, and one of the questions they ask is, "Can you animate an engine?" No? Ah, okay. Well, we're looking for people who can. So it's actually a thing now where like knowing Unreal can be the thing that gets you the job. Obviously, you still have to know how to do the job, how to animate, but it is now an actual thing that some people need to know. So Epic has successfully created a feature set that is not only worth knowing or worth having some familiarity with, but depending on the studio you're looking at and the kind of work they do, it may be a deal breaker not to know it. That said, that's always been that's same thing is true of Maya where like it's expected that you know Maya, and I don't think that's ever going to really change, but it's sort of like you should know Maya and Unreal. I think it's going to be rare that people only know Unreal, but there may come a time that, one or the other, I don't know. It's tricky. I think Maya's been ingrained for so long that there will be some studios that just never give it up. They won't be able to. Their pipelines just depend on it so heavily. But its dominance in the industry is being shaken quite a bit at this point.
I also see that. My other question is, you teach both. What does Unreal already do better than Maya for animation, and where does Maya still have that competitive advantage?
The way I like to put it is almost almost everything that you can do in Maya, you can now do in Unreal. Certain things lack the responsiveness and the polish that we're used to in Maya, but they're improving so quickly that I don't know how long that's going to last. And there already are a bunch of things in Unreal that Maya will never be able to touch. A lot of the stuff that Unreal can do that Maya just can't comes down to the whole game engine side of Unreal, like that being, I mean, it's a game engine first. So there's a lot of just like under the hood, how it works. There's things that Unreal can do that Maya just computationally, like it's just not built for. An example of this would probably be, I mean, well, let me start on the other end. Let me say first, something that Maya still has over Unreal. Over Unreal is the pose library, and I should caveat, Maya does not have a pose library. Unreal does, but Maya has a bunch of plugins people have made, and one of those plugins is called Studio Library, a free library plugin that everybody uses in the industry, and that library is still a bit stronger than Unreal's library, but it's sort of a tricky thing because like that's not even built into Maya. It's just free, and so everybody uses it. The only thing that Maya has currently that Unreal just doesn't do very well is like motion trails, or not motion trails, motion paths, where you make a spline and then you attach something to it. You can do it in Unreal, but it's still kind of shaky. Those are the only two things I can really think of that Unreal doesn't do super well, although it does do them. On the other hand, a few things Unreal can do. I mean, there's something, for example, you have the way that rigs are built in Unreal are crazy. It's like a totally different way of thinking. And so they can do all kinds of different things. There are rigs I've seen that FK and IK skeletons stay in perfect sync while you animate in them. You don't have to switch between them. They just both follow each other. I've seen rigs where the feet can search out the floor and snap automatically to ground depending on the angle. And like, so if you had a character running and then you introduced a ramp, the character will automatically change the height based on the floor because it'll do game engine logic to figure out in real time, height differentials where Maya's never going to be able to do that kind of thing without some kind of a script to do the analysis and then apply it later. That's two things off the top of my head, but there are a lot of things that Unreal can do that are just really, really cool.
Yeah, for sure. So you're so in tune with technology and the animation industry, software, etc., etc. So I wanted to ask you this question. If you were to just kind of like look 10 years in the future, your prediction, what would you say the job of a character animator do you think would look like?
What do I think the job what?
What do you think like a character animator 10 years in the future, how, what do you think it would be like?
Well, 10 years from now is a long way away in terms of technology, but I would say that it's probably going to be fairly similar to how it is today. I mean, we've had animation as a medium, as an industry for decades. I want to say like close to 100 years or so, but I don't know if that's actually true. I think people have been animating for 100 years, but I don't know if the industry's existed that long. I don't think so, but we're getting there. Um, or did we? Did Disney just turn 100 years old recently? I forget. I forget.
Yes, yes, the studio thing, Once Upon a Studio.
That's right. Oh, that's right. Wow. So there you go. And from whenever they were making Snow White, the first animated feature, till now, obviously they were drawing it. Now we're using 3D models and things like that. The way in which we interact with our characters has, you know, I wouldn't say it's changed. We've gotten more options because people still do 2D animation and they still do the exact same thing that they did 100 years ago, drawing frames, every frame. And that's never going to go away. So what we do now also isn't going to go away. We will be presented with more choices, more options, more developments, and more tools and things like that. But ultimately, the goal is still going to be bringing characters to life and being the artists of these animated movies, TV shows, games. We may have other things that we're making, other experiences that we're creating, whether it's like VR stuff or whatever. Um, I know that the first thing everyone thinks of when I say all this is AI. Like, it's not going away, but you know, as much as it may impact our industry and the way we do stuff, at the end of the day, it's still going to take artists crafting a performance to make something compelling that we actually want to watch. And so we can be comforted by the fact that it's been here 100 years and we're still doing it. And there's still people doing it the same way we did 100 years ago.
Yeah. So for students right now, what would you say are like some skills you think that students should focus on that would matter in the future? And what's something that you see a lot of students kind of stressing about that you think won't be so relevant in the future?
I think drawing is a good skill to have. It's not necessary for 3D animation. Like I'm not any great 2D artist, but those who can draw have a much better time doing a variety of things in animation. It's just a good skill to have. It's very useful and it makes you more versatile. I think despite the fact that I'm like my thing is knowing software and being able to figure out any tool, it's helpful, but it's not the end all be all because 10 years from now, will we still be using Maya? Maybe. Will we still be using Unreal? Maybe. There may be some other tool that completely just like takes over and we have no, so like I wouldn't worry too much about I wouldn't worry about software. You know, people are always concerned. Should I learn Maya, Blender, Unreal? Like, what do I do? Just pick one. Just pick one and start animating because it's best just to start getting good at the skill set of animation. The craft itself is the most important thing. Anything else is secondary. Other skills that support that are great, like drawing will help you. Physics, from like a technical mindset, will help you understand the world and how to apply that into your animation. So many skills that you can learn will help you be a better animator, but sitting there worrying about, AI or something like that's only going to slow you down and beat down the confidence that is already hard to have as an artist. So just, keep moving forward.
Keep moving forward. So, would you say that the future you see kind of it more shifting to a world where you see animators be kind of like generalists who can animate to lighting, to rigging, etc., etc., or do you see the future to be extremely deep, specialized kind of industry?
I think that's a good question and it's a tough one to answer because animation is inherently a more specialized skill set of all the 3D. Like if we're talking about 3D animation as an industry, the industry that makes like a movie, for example, animators are pretty specialized because it just takes a long time to get good at this. But I do think that becoming a generalist is going to become not only more valuable but more common. When I started my journey, it was very much I specialized in animation immediately, and ever since I've been independent, since I left DreamWorks, I've found myself becoming more of a generalist. I still have the animation skill set. I'm still developing it, but if you imagine, a bunch of different little bar graphs where animation was my one that shined above everything else. Since then, I have added so many other things that are like decently high. There's still some things I suck at, but becoming a generalist has led to a lot more opportunities for me and has been really helpful in making me a better animator as well. So I do think that everybody should pick, two, three, four different things that they're interested in and pursue all of them to a certain extent, become a generalist in related things, basically. A way I see that being really useful for people in the industry is, animators who are also story artists, drawing, or rigging, or, what's another example? Some people do more technical stuff. They end up as like crowds animators doing cycles and that kind of stuff as well. But that's probably the most common thing is either story artist and animator, the combo, or animation and rigging as a combo, modeling and texturing as a combo, those kinds of things. I like animation and effects. That's a pretty uncommon pairing because effects and animation don't really go together on the pipeline and they're very different like sides of the brain. But I'm a more technical person, so effects works for me. But I would say yes, generalism is on the rise and it's really helpful. I think it will continue to be more helpful as well as, budgets tighten and you need to have more reason to justify hire me. I can do lots of things. So if it gets slow in this department, I can help out over here.
That makes sense. So Epic just announced that blueprints are kind of going to get phased out in Unreal Engine 6 and replaced by Verse. What are your thoughts on that? And what does this mean for a game animator who probably spent years trying to, learn blueprints?
For now, I wouldn't stress. The reason I say that, they announced that they're going to be deprecating blueprints eventually, but when Unreal 6 comes out, it will have support for blueprints, and eventually they're going to like phase it out. Now, I don't know the plan with Verse, but I can't imagine that they're going to be ready to do that very quickly. They need to convince, I mean, they're already trying to become like an industry standard across a bunch of different things. Now, they have a pretty good dominance in the gameplay and game design area for sure. But there's a lot of people who took a long time to move from Unreal 4 to 5, and they've now got to continue building market share and becoming the platform everybody wants, and they've also got to convince everybody to go to 6. They're not going to just say, hey, dump everything you knew and try this new thing that you don't know Verse yet. Like, they have to ease people in. So I think we're going to still have blueprints for a while as they ramp into helping everybody learn Verse. It's going to take some time for that to happen. But even if they get rid of blueprints, I can't, I mean, I don't, this is speculation, but I can't imagine that they won't introduce something, a similar way to interact with the code. Because what they essentially did with blueprints is they gave us a visual scripting way to interact with C++ code. And it was so helpful in getting people into game design. Like, that's one of the big reasons people jumped into Unreal was, I don't know how to code, but I can make a game now. Verse is a whole programming language, but their whole like blueprints mindset was built on you don't necessarily need to know how to do the code. So I think they'll introduce some new version of blueprint. Maybe they'll call it something different that's essentially Verse code, but in these blocks and modules and like with the, same thing. I can't imagine they won't do something similar. And even if they do or don't, I think it's going to be a while before we have to worry about it, because we're going to have Unreal 5.8 probably for the next year and a half, maybe 2 years. That's quite a bit of time for us to just kind of keep going without, again, stressing about something that we don't exactly know what it's going to look like anyways.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, there's so many things one can do with Unreal Engine, MetaHumans, performance capture, game implementation, or actually animating in Unreal Engine. In the current industry, which part of Unreal would you say is the most used or most required?
Most required. I guess it really depends on what you're doing. Because if you're doing games, that's a totally different answer than if you're doing like animation or film or TV, like linear content or architecture or robotics or all the different things people do. Um, I think if you're doing games, blueprints is the answer for now. Like if you're making games, you have to know how to like do game logic. But for everybody else, I think sequencer. It's a pretty broad thing to say, but sequencer is essentially Unreal's timeline. And it can do a lot of stuff, and it can like branch into so many different workflows. Within sequencer, there's so many animation tools. There's so many motion capture tools. There's so many different, but ultimately it comes down to, being able to manage the data that happens to be in your scene to do stuff with it. Um, I think the most common feature is probably MetaHumans, just because like everybody typically needs a character of some kind, and if you don't make them from scratch, then MetaHuman is kind of your go-to. So I think that's probably the most common feature set that people are getting into, and it's great. But beyond that, it's a toss-up of like, what kind of project are you making, and what do you actually need to know? So I think I would start with just getting comfortable in the engine, just knowing how to move stuff around, add stuff, like know how to play. That's the most important thing, is just know how to play around and have an idea. It's like, oh, let me try to like do something. And whatever that thing is, if you feel comfortable enough to play, you're in good shape.
Understood. So now shifting away to the last topic of questions, which are going to be based on freelance and social media, because you're very good at, freelancing and social media. So I said, who better to ask these questions than you? So what are some tips you have for animators trying to grow a social media presence right now?
Hmm. Well, I could talk about this forever. I guess I would say a couple things. First thing is, know your why. Like, understand the reason why you want to do it. The reason why you want to create content for animation, or like whatever it is your goal is, That's the most important thing because that's going to motivate like whatever like what when people say like, oh, what kind of content should I make? It depends on like why are you trying to do it? If it's about money and status and fame, it's probably not going to work out that well for you anyways, but maybe you'll find a way to like gamify the system. Usually though, the people who create content and succeed in this industry, in that, the content creation industry, there's a deeper reason. In my case, it's I really like to teach and I wanted to help people in the way that I wish someone had been able to help me. I've always been trying to create the resource that I wish I had had. That was the inspiration of starting my YouTube channel. That's the motivation behind pretty much every video, is just documenting the stuff I'm learning so that other people don't have to struggle so much trying to figure those things out. And that like mission statement essentially has it doesn't really get old. It doesn't wear off. It doesn't burn me out, and it's not something I have to struggle to want to do. It's just a part of what I care about. It's what I'm passionate about. And so I've been doing it full time for 7 or 8 years, but also people don't like feel icky when they see that from me. That's obviously like a positive thing. But I've seen people who, their goal is essentially, I want to have the biggest channel, I want to get rich, I want to whatever. It is not a very lucrative thing for a very, like it takes years before you can make any kind of real money. So you sort of have to anchor it in passion of some kind, either in creativity or in helping people or in exploration or curiosity. Like it can be any number of things. And it's not a bad thing to, say, I want to make money doing this. That's totally fine. Like, so do I. I want to be able to pay my bills doing it. That's a part of it, but it's not the reason I got into it. I know a couple people who that was the reason. They didn't last long because they were disappointed going, oh, this is a lot harder than I thought. And that's the thing, is you have to have a reason that kind of keeps you going, despite the fact that it is a very difficult and time-consuming thing. Most people can't do it full-time because it's like having 5 different jobs at least on top of whatever thing you already do to make money. So my general advice is just, find the reason that you actually want to do it, be honest with yourself, and then just keep at it. Because ultimately, you should be making the videos that you want to make and the videos that you would want to watch, not necessarily trying to do what you think other people need to see or want to see. You can do a couple. If someone's like, oh, can you do a video on this? Absolutely. Do the thing that they're asking for. But you can't also only do that, or you will burn yourself out. You have to have a certain amount of excitement yourself for the things that you're making. And so you have to keep that in mind.
Yes. And so this is kind of more in regards to freelancing and commissions. For someone who wants to go to freelancing in animation, what are some things that one should absolutely be aware of?
Contracts are big. Make sure you have everything in writing. Make sure that I mean, this is going to sound really cynical, but like, don't trust anybody. What I mean by that is set the expectations, both for your sake and for the client's sake. You know, everybody should understand exactly what is being asked for, what's the schedule, what's the timeline, what's the budget going to be, are there revisions, is there an opportunity for notes, how many, is there some kind of like a deadline where beyond the regular deadline, is there a deadline where like after a certain point, like the rules have to change because if the project gets extended for any reason, well, we need to reevaluate. I mean, the whole contract thing is like a rabbit hole to go down, and you should consult somebody who knows what they're doing. I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice, but contracts are huge. But then also, I would say that like finding work, like getting work as an independent artist, as a freelancer, you can try the websites, Fiverr and I don't know, whatever all those websites are that like you can sign up and try to find stuff. Personally, I haven't had much success on those back when I was getting into freelance. I know some people who say they have. I don't know how they do it. But the most valuable thing you can do to sort of get your name out there and get good work that's paid is kind of a combination of two things. I think it's actually great to be doing social media content in some way, especially if you are helping people and you're providing free resources. That will attract people who Like the people who have freelance projects will end up finding you because they're probably looking up how that thing is done. Then they find you in your video and they go, oh, this person knows how to do it. Maybe I'll just hire them. And then, or, even if they hire somebody else, that person might mention, like, oh, yeah, I learned from this other person. And like people end up coming to you as referrals, which is my experience. I've had a lot of work come in because I make free YouTube content. But the other thing is to just, similar to the very first thing I said, my first advice is keep focusing on your craft and make sure you're putting out videos of the stuff that you want to get hired for and not just like making, if you're posting some kind of a freelance reel of all the things you can do, then you might get hired for any of those things. But you might not like doing all of those things. So make sure that if there's something you want to get hired for, that you're actually posting up to date and consistent work here and there of the things that you want to get hired to do so that people know that you do it. I can't tell you how many people I know who have tried to get work doing, let's say, visual effects freelance work, but they're posting a lot of like random modeling side projects or modeling gigs, and like, yeah, I keep getting hired for modeling, but I want to do visual effects. It's like, but you're just posting modeling jobs. Like all your website's full of modeling stuff. No wonder people hardly know you do visual effects, and the stuff you have is old. So anyway, I see that a lot. Is you have to advertise what you do, and you have to be good at it.
Yes. How do you balance making content while actually getting better at the craft? Doesn't one take one from the other?
In my case, because so much of my content is about teaching the craft that I do, it helps me understand it better. If I'm going to do a video or a tutorial or some topic where I have to spend, 20 minutes talking about how to do this thing in animation, I have to actually understand how to do that thing in animation. And I might be writing some kind of an outline, coming up with, ooh, what do I want to say in this video? And I'm finding examples and I'm doing all this stuff. I have had so many instances where, maybe I was doing a video on duplicates and smears and, more cartoony animation stuff. And as I was, doing some research for the video and I was pulling up, do I have any clips that I've done? Any experiences I can share of my own? What friends have shared their stories with me? What clips can I find online to show what I'm talking about? And through all that stuff, not only do I learn more about it because I'm sitting there staring at it and analyzing it and breaking it down and showing that with people, but as I spend time with the material, I'm discovering new things and I'm getting inspired myself to go, ooh, maybe I should make an example for the video. I should try to show 2 or 3 different concepts. And then I have to sit there and I have to animate those things to put them in the video. So I'm just inherently getting more practice as I go. Both my eye as an animator, my actual hand, doing the thing, and just mentally as well. By absorbing all that stuff and having it in my mental library, the style of content I do being very educational, there's some quote somewhere about, I forget exactly the details, but the spirit of the quote essentially is that to teach something, you must understand it, or no, actually, I'm combining 2 quotes. There's another one that's like, to explain something in simple terms means that you understand it very deeply, or something like that. I don't remember. It's some quote like that. And that's the thing is like content creation, sometimes you have to be really concise. And I guess I'll put it this way. When I first started making videos, I would film for an hour and a half to get a 15-minute video. And now I don't have to do that anymore because I understand the stuff so much better. I can explain it in a much tighter window.
Yes. So now, going to my second last question is, in terms of, your freelance work, like so many of like your YouTube ones, you're kind of like your own boss, and then you get like commissions, freelance. Like, how do you time manage everything and schedule everything? Especially because, as I mentioned, that you're not going to an office, basically you're kind of your own boss.
It's rough. I'm not very good at that part. I don't sleep very much. I try my best to spread things out. And if I feel like I've got a lot of projects right now, I got a lot of deadlines, let me you know, schedule the next batch of work for further out once these things should be finished. But inevitably, somehow, things always end up either getting pushed or delayed or something gets moved up or whatever. Everything always ends up happening at the same time. I don't know what the deal is, but like, despite my best efforts to keep things nice and relaxed everything always ends up where I'm like, I've got 4 things due all within like a 2 or 3 day period, and I don't sleep for a week as I try to get it all done. I think the best advice I can give is just to be very communicative with anybody that you're working with. Be very open, be as transparent as you can, build relationships whenever possible so that it's not, a crazy thing to say, "Hey, can we extend this by a week? Can we like push that?" I mean, not that I'm trying to push deadlines all the time, but the idea of like, if someone says, "Oh, can we have this in 2 weeks?" Like, I'm kind of in the middle of. I mean, what I'm saying is, you would set expectations doing that and say, "I'm kind of in the middle of a few projects. I'm not confident that they're going to be wrapped up by the time we need to get this done. Do you have any flexibility in the timeline? Can we do another week or two just to make sure? I'll still try to get it in early, but to be safe, can we set the deadline later?" If you're familiar with the people that you're working with, that's a much easier conversation because then you feel comfortable enough to ask and they are comfortable enough to either give you that time or to say, "No, it's not, we can't do that. Can you still make it work?" And then you can be honest and be like, "Well," you have to then know either to say, "Yeah, I can do it," and then you have to do it. Or to be able to say, "Ooh, it's better to miss this work and not get paid than to screw it up and never get paid again by this person." And that is a very difficult thing to self-manage. But ultimately, communication is probably the biggest and most important advice I can give. You cannot hide from your inbox. You cannot hide from your emails because you're overdue and it's like, "Oh, I don't really want to reply to them. I want to send them back something that's perfect. Let me just wait until I'm done." It will only get worse if you don't just reply. Even something that is just like, "Hey, I'm going to get back to you later this week. Still working on it. Thanks for your patience." Like, keep that line of communication open because it's the biggest thing that people get frustrated when they just don't know what's going on with the project that they're hiring for.
Great points, and I feel all of our animators we can relate to that in some version of it. So I wanted to ask the last question, and feel free to go, a technical or holistical mindset, psychological, philosophical, whatever you feel it kind of would answer this nicely. Is for someone trying to break in right now as an animator in this brutal job market, what actually moves the needle?
In terms of getting hired,
In terms of just having a fruitful career, longevity.
I think the most, I would say, I have a handful of things I would say. Some of the things are my opinion, some of the things are things that other people have told me and things I've heard in my time in the industry in all these years. Some of the things that come most to mind: being a good person is one of the most important things. You can become a better artist, but no one's going to teach you to be a better person, and no one's going to want to work with you if you're not. So, being enjoyable to work with and be around is a huge part of the job. You can have a bad day, you got to try and leave some of that energy out of the office. And if it pokes its head up for a bit, you got to learn to, like, find an outlet that's not making it other people's problem. That doesn't mean you have to be fake happy all the time. It just means that you can't like kill the vibe. Everybody's got a job to do. So do what you can to be like a presence that everybody actually wants to be part of the team, and that will help you stick around. Another thing, speed is really helpful, but it will come with time. No one typically is expecting you to be the fastest person when you first start a job. Speed comes with time, it comes with experience, and it's very valuable, but it's also not usually the expectation on day one. And so don't stress too much about it. I think, obviously, being able to have the skill set, to have a good career, you have to be able to do the job. I've kind of already sorted that part. But I think beyond that, to have a fruitful career, I think you just have to really enjoy the process. Animators don't typically get famous. It's not always a job that pays the best. Sometimes some studios pay really well, but it is a really tedious process. It is time consuming. It is challenging. It is sometimes very unrewarding if you're like hoping for like this awesome shot in a movie or in a game or a TV show and you're just getting head turns all day. Like it can be a bit of a grind. So you have to find a way to really enjoy something about the process every single time. And usually it's the people. It's getting to work with other creative people and to work as part of a larger team on something that gets you excited. Which is why I say you want to be the type of person that people want around because that's going to help everybody with the thing. But ultimately, you have to enjoy this job because it's not easy. And it's not something that you just like get super like over time you get better at it and it kind of gets easier, but I've also heard animators who have been doing it for 20, 30 years who are like, "Yep, I still struggle with every shot. I still suck at walk cycles here and there. I still make mistakes. I still need to ask for help. I still stress out when I'm stuck on a shot and I wonder, is this it? Am I done? Am I terrible? The imposter syndrome never goes away." Like everyone I've ever talked to, no one's ever disagreed with those things. You always have to keep at it and keep learning. And so I think the most important thing, if I had to like take all the things and boil it down, you have to love to learn and to grow and to accept the fact that you will never know everything and you have to have power in numbers. You have to be able to work with other people because it is a team sport. Animation's a team sport. And you have to be both a good teammate and you have to enjoy working with a team. If you do it solo, there are people who make their own solo projects constantly, but there's a limit to what one person can do. Except, I mean, with time, I mean, you could spend 20 years making your project by yourself, but you know, you're going to look back 20 years ago and be like, oh, the first shot I did isn't very good. I've gotten better since then. And then you'll just keep reworking the whole thing forever. So it's a team sport and you've got to be good with that and find the fun in every day because it's a fun job, but you have to be willing to be okay with the parts that aren't fun and hope that it's outweighed by the parts that are.
Oh no, oh, very, very beautiful answer and very, very insightful. I can see your years of experience coming from that answer. And one thing I also see, of course, I don't have that breadth of experience, but I also feel like, young people getting into the industry, I feel like a lot of them or like play video games, want to get into the video game industry, watch animated movies, want to work there. And I feel like maybe a lot of people who have been working for many years, they kind of lose that interest and they don't kind of like consume so much. I feel like that also is good, to just see how everything is going on and just have that passion continue and not just make it 100% a career, but also make it a hobby.
Yeah. I think I think there's nothing wrong with enjoying creative pursuits as hobbies. And if they start as a passion and they become hobbies later, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with losing interest in wanting to do it as your job and just wanting to kind of do it for fun. That's totally fine. Everyone loves a good side project and being creative on the side. Like people like to sketch and doodle. Like I like to doodle. I'm not a very good artist, but I like to doodle. I'll never do it professionally, but it's fun for me. On the other hand, I would also say if you start to lose motivation, return to those things that got you inspired in the first place. If you play video games and you love games and you're like, I want to make games, and then you start getting into it, a lot of the reason why people get kind of burnt out and they stop enjoying it is because they find that they're no longer finding time to play the games they like and to revisit that inspiration. And sometimes it's a matter of the games you like start to evolve and you realize like, oh, actually, I think I either want to make a different type of game or I want a different role. I don't actually want to be doing like the game design or the game programming or the game animation. Maybe I want to make game assets or maybe I don't even want to work in games. Maybe I want to play games, but I found that I like the magic to be a surprise. Maybe I want to work in TV or something. And people end up kind of changing what they're most interested in, but you do want to just enjoy the parts you enjoy, whether that's the work or the passion or the creative or the hobby or whatever, or if that's just playing the game, watching the movie, and just letting it be magical. Cool.
Yes, to boil it down, enjoy the journey. And with that said, just want to thank you again for coming to my podcast. And it was a huge pleasure hearing your answers.